Welcome back to the Strong Family Project podcast. I'm Joe, joined by Mel.
Welcome back to the Strong Family Project podcast, where we guide you on the path to raising confident, independent, and resilient children in a strong family environment.
Big Q&A episode today. We're going to do 10 questions that we've received over the last couple of years before we take our mid-season summer break to spend more time with our family. So we want to put this episode out for you. A little bit of housekeeping. If you're someone that's relatively new to the podcast, I would highly recommend visiting strongfamilyproject.com. Download the steps of the Strong Family Path. Give them a read over the summer. Choose one or two to start implementing, and then start chipping away at it. The reason why we do this podcast is more about impact and connection versus just casual listeners. Like, we have tons of casual listeners, but we just want to go a little bit deeper and help people out. And the best way to help them out is use that resource. The second best way is if you visit Amazon. We have the Strong Family Guidebook, which did hit the bestseller list in one of the family categories last month. I would highly recommend getting that book. It's all laid out, and we go through the Strong Family Path in more detail with plenty more examples in the book. I believe right now it's like $10, so it's pretty affordable to grab the book and get started on the path. Mel, let's dive in with our topic of the week. Do you have any questions before we jump in?
Since this is actually the last day of school for our kids, because out here in the Midwest we finish up in May, what is a favorite memory from this school year?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Mine was going to be with Henry. I got to go rafting with him. I just loved it for so many reasons, because just watching him enjoy it with his friends, the fact that I was able to go with them, that we live in a place that allows for that, and that he has that kind of program at school. I just love also that he actually wants me to be there. So for me, I will always hold that in my heart because I love spending those kind of experiences with my kids.
That's great. I'm glad you're able to go. I am thrilled by the quantity of field trips our kids were able to go on. If you add up between the two middle school ones, it must have been close to 20. Everything from small hikes right out of the school that doesn't need transportation, to rafting, to overnight trips. But to pick something different, I'm going to choose our youngest Progress. He's a kindergartner. What they do is positive referrals, that he was able to be more of a leader, be kind to others, clean up things that he saw need to be done without being asked. And so seeing his progress is really great.
I know he took when they did like Earth Week and they were cleaning up, or like in the playground in the back, he took that really seriously, and he would just during recess go out and find trash. So that was cool. All
right, I'm going to count my question as question 1 in the Q&A. Okay. So this is going to hopefully make us seem a little more approachable, because we definitely have these. Mel, what frustrates you as a parent?
Oh boy. Let's start on like a sad note. What frustrates me? I think not like lack of progress. If we are like focusing on something, so this is recent, so we have our values all laid out. And sometimes I don't see those playing out with the kids. And I think that frustrates me. Like, we live this every day. We show gratitude at dinner every day. How is this not already just happening all the time with the kids? Does that make sense? Like, we always talk about constant gentle pressure and how patient we have to be. We don't always see the fruits of our labor as parents. When kids are growing up, we have to wait and see how it all plays out. So that's my frustration, I think, is sometimes I'm putting so much energy towards living by these values and then just not seeing them play out in the kids' lives, not all the time. But that's frustrating to me, because you have to stay the course, and sometimes it can be exhausting to stay the course.
Mm-hmm. Mine's related to that, and I hear you. It takes so much constant gentle pressure. It'd be great if progress was just linear, and it's not. It is up and down. It is progressing. It is regressing over and over again. Mine is similar in that I hate when the kids miss opportunities. I'm a big fan of a book called The Go-Giver, one of the first books that my friend Kevin handed me when I got big into professional development. And it's basically this Jim Rohn saying is, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll have everything you want. And we have graduations and everything going on. It would be really wise of the kids to walk up to the teachers, look them in the eye, and say, thank you so much for investing your time in me this year, and give them a handshake and a gift or a card or something. But I see some of those opportunities slip between the cracks to build relationships. So I expect progressing and regressing. It just pains me more when I see it when it comes to interpersonal relationships that they can build and that would be mutually beneficial down the road, because people think this stuff happens just because of luck, but it really is intentional building relationships and helping other people. And then if it comes around to you in a real way, great. If it comes around to you and you feel good about what you did and the character that you showed, that's great too. It doesn't have to be actually it shouldn't be transactional. It should be you be doing good and speaking the truth. Hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate you investing in me. Thank you for this. Even to custodial staff, thank you so much for giving us a clean place to learn this year. It's a sentence. It is 5 seconds out of their day, and they know to do it, and sometimes they just get too involved in themselves and don't.
This is the frustration, is kids are naturally more self-centered.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to constantly remind them that the world does not revolve around them, and that they need to give back and have gratitude for those that are pouring into them. So I think that's the frustration I was talking about, is like we as adults can see it from a different perspective. We have more of a worldview, more of a bird's eye view of what's going on, where kids have a very self-centered view. And it's not a fault thing, it's just how kids are. So we have to constantly remind them that there's more to it than that. And I agree, missed opportunities, that is upsetting. And I love that you said that progress isn't linear, because that's really what it is. Some days I notice the fruits of our labor and we're progressing great, and then the next day I'm like, what happened? So it is that constant roller coaster ride, which can be exhausting.
All right, get the laptop out, because every time we get sent a question from you, and please do submit them even over the summer. You can submit them right through our Instagram or through the website. We put them on a Google Doc, and we'll be able to go through them, and we're going to do 9 more today. So that was the first one, what's frustrating, because it is not perfect for anybody. Regardless of what anyone says, it's always an adventure. All right, let's dive into some hard ones first. Mel, how do I be supportive without being controlling?
My answer really comes from when I learned something about how to handle little kids. So little kids, they want control, but if you don't provide them structure, they feel completely out of control. So you always try to provide a kid a choice. So you would say something like, do you want to wear the red shirt or the green shirt? You don't just say, what do you want to wear? And then it's too overwhelming. So you give them choices within a controlled environment. And then obviously that's like for a little kid. As they get older, you have to also find ways to give them options, but not necessarily leave it completely open-ended. So you're supporting their development, giving them control, but you're still giving them like a finite number of options. And obviously as they get older, those options can become they're just not as structured as with the little kids.
No notes. Question 2. Question 3.
Okay.
That's a great tactic. I'm not going to water it down by saying some word soup after it. Let's go with an easier one. How does a parent teach their child how to be patient for fishing?
For fishing? Oh.
Now, I think the bigger concept is, how do you teach a child to be patient? One tactic is to teach them to be comfortable with being bored. Fishing is boring.
Do you have a story about that?
It's not a bad thing, though. What's that?
Remember when you went fishing, you went trolling? Is it called trolling?
Where you can motorboat around and...
Yeah, and you caught like nothing, and it was like 6 hours of just sitting on the boat. Did you learn?
That's what fishing is, Mel. All the fishermen say, or they would call it catching if you actually was just out there getting exciting. I know, but how do you teach a kid to be patient? You got to get them comfortable with being bored and lower the stimulation of their lives. So too much life is stimulus and then a response, a beep, and then they go check something. And the more that you can mitigate that in everyday life, the better. Now, perhaps it's not practical. Oh, we got to keep kids off tech. That's not what I'm saying. You do need to have some parameters around it, but a no tech afternoon, no tech day once a week teaches them the skill set to be patient and entertain themselves.
So I like what you said about being comfortable with being bored, and something came to mind. So I took our oldest the other day to get his braces off, and we showed up. And we were a little early, so we had to wait about 20 minutes. And we check in, we sit down. Another family comes in, checks in, and sits down. And the kid immediately pulls his phone out and starts looking at it. Whereas Logan and I just sat there and chatted with each other and just had to be okay with. And he was saying he was bored. I was like, that's okay. Like, we can just sit here and hang out. And I think it's important to recognize that. The other thing I think helps with patience, so with the fishing example, let's say you're on the boat, is almost the constant gentle pressure of, again, being grateful. Find something to be grateful for, whether it be you get to spend time with whoever you're with, you get to be out in nature. When I go on a walk, I love birds now, and I try to find them, hear them, and if you focus on those things, you end up being less bored and more grateful. So focusing on gratitude, living in that particular moment, I think is really the root of patience. Like when I'm patient with the kids, because I know my purpose is to help them, and if I lose it, that's not going to be helpful to them. So always trying to be grateful for the opportunity I have to raise them, or whatever the case may be, even if it's a moment of struggle.
Yeah, I think it's wise with something you said there. It goes along with the constant gentle pressure I mentioned early on, is that us demonstrating gratitude for being able to sit and do nothing. It's also hard for me, but being able to sit there and say, I'm really thankful that we get to spend this time just being together. Now, like, all right, what do you want to do?
Yeah, like always filling it with activity. It's okay to just sit. Like I remember when we were dating, or even back, like with any kind of friendships that you're really close to, you know you're friends with someone, or you know you have something special when you can just sit together and not feel this need to fill the space with words or activity. Does that make sense? So I think trying to get the kids to understand that, because when they're older, we don't want them to have to always be stimulated, or for their boredom to be taken care of by a device, or whatever the case may be.
Very cool. Okay, question 4. What is the best approach to helping your child learn that respect is an important dynamic as a family member?
Role modeling, really.
This is an interesting one, because I see it go a little south on the parenting side, not necessarily the kid side, because this is the strong family project. It's not the strong kid project. So the easiest place to start is to be accountable and see what we can improve, and then we can work on what they can improve in this situation. So if a child's a little bit disrespectful, how do you react would be a good place to start. Do you explode? Do you yell at them? Is that really how it's going to work in the real world? Should they explode and yell at someone who's disrespectful to them? Is that what you want for their life? Because they'll be exploding and yelling at people all day long. Because intent, and they'll be looking for it. And some of it's unintentional, some of it's intentional. Some people have no social skills and just happen to be disrespectful. And I prefer, no, this isn't someone I'm going to be hanging around or helping. Now, you can't just get up and leave your kids. You should not do that. But you can say, oh, okay, if that's how you want to behave, you did this, that made me feel like you're disrespecting me, so I'm going to go back and do either with the other kids or focus on them for a little bit, for like today. I'm not talking like months. Or I'm going to do this thing that I need to get done, and you just sit with what you just did. And just let them sit with that. You don't have to explode and yell at them.
Right. I think thinking bigger picture, though, if you really want to lay a foundation of respect, you have to have your core values set and live by them. This is why the Strong Family Path is so amazing, I think, is that it provides you the structure for developing respect within your family. You want to develop a culture of respect, a culture of caring about each other. So if there is a tough truth that needs to be delivered, for example, if a kid was disrespectful, that they can trust that you're doing it because you love them. Now, in that moment, they're not going to be like, thanks, Mom or Dad, for pointing that out to me. But if you don't do the homework ahead of time, and you don't lay the groundwork of values, and living by them, and creating a culture in your family of care, then you can't expect the kid to be respectful. And then if they disrespect you, you need to have a basis of, hey, being respectful to each other is one of our core values. We need to work on this. It just gives you this, instead of just saying, because I said so, you should be kind. It gives you this better, again, foundation of where you're coming from.
Excellent point. You got to start there. It is not a smooth path. There's not a magic wand. If you think there's a magic wand where the kid acts disrespectful, you say this one sentence and all of a sudden everything's hunky-dory. Hunky-dory. I don't think that's right either.
Yes, it is.
That's not going to happen either. So it is controlling your emotions. It's taking a breath that we've talked about on previous episodes. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, and then speak in a calm tone. Because that's what you want to teach them. You want to teach them the response that would likely happen to them out in the real world when they do it. It's not going to be an explosive emotional response. You have to play the long game with this. And I think there's some tactics in there that you can do. Also, we talked about this. I believe we had an episode on discipline, season 1, where we can tie this together right now, where if you they're consistently disrespectful to the point where they need a consequence. You make the consequence tie into the action or issue. And so, for example, if a kid's acting very selfish, they're making it all about themselves, they're disrespecting everyone else, they're not being attentive to anyone else, people are trying to talk to them, they're just ignoring them because they're so involved in their own thing. I had to speak to one of our kids about it and say, hey, this is what's happening, here's what I'm seeing, here's why it's going to improve you, and here's what you need to do tonight. And tonight you need to do one thing for one other person in this house and come tell me before you go to bed. You got 3 hours. And so it's identifying the behavior and giving them something very specific and tangible to do to improve it versus just like, you're a disrespectful child, now go to bed.
Even when we ask the kids to apologize, it's always, I'm sorry for, and then what can I do to help? So it's all connected. You want them to make the connection between their behavior and how they can improve it. So it's the difference between having a consequence versus like punishment, like just go to your room or something that doesn't really teach them. And just telling a kid to think about it, they might need a structure of thinking about it. That might not be enough. You might have to give them the specific question that they need to answer in their mind.
Question 5, something that you asked me this morning, so now you'll have to ask it live. How do you congratulate your kids?
We did just talk about this. Oh my gosh.
Mel sat us down at the table this morning and said, listen, you guys do a terrible job celebrating things.
We historically have not been good at celebrating.
That is accurate.
And
we just had one graduate from 8th grade going off to high school as we're feeling older. But Mel wants to celebrate it more, and we went to the ceremony and did all that. However, she wants to do more, which is, she's a very good heart.
Let me tell you where the question came from. So I went on Facebook this morning, and I am friends with some of the parents of classmates of my kid. And there was some pictures up there of this particular student and like pictures with her friends. And like the mom's like a photographer, so she's always posting amazing pictures. And how they like went out to like a dinner place and just like smiles all around and how it was like an amazing night. And I almost felt like I slighted my kid by not celebrating enough. So I felt guilty. So that's first where the question came
little mom
from.
Guilt, okay.
Yeah, like I really did. And I already had some ideas. But he didn't like the picture that was like in the graduation thing that they gave. So I already found like his football picture from this year and like his other picture that he preferred, and I'm going to glue it in there. But I just feel like we need to celebrate a little bit more. And I know we've talked, I think we've exhausted the whole idea of how we're not about like necessarily getting a cake or going out to eat. And so that's what originally comes to mind, but I want to do something more unique and different. And I was trying to gather ideas from you guys. So like I'm going to make him one of his favorite dinners at home tonight. And I'm going to fix that graduation booklet that has the wrong picture he doesn't like. And I want each of the people in the family to give him a compliment or some kind of like growth that they've seen in him this year. But I just feel like we need something more. So
you know what I want to give him now that I hear you talking? I want to give him a test, like a written test to say, to prove, like, all right, what did you learn this year? Time to show off. Boom, exam, pop quiz. He thought school was over, got him.
I think the challenge, too, is he doesn't enjoy school. He likes seeing his friends, and he really loved football, but he doesn't enjoy school. He'd rather be doing other things. And that's always been, like, a pattern. So I think he's just happy it's over. So I don't know that he really wants to celebrate school. So I want to focus on the things that, like, went well this year. And maybe that's focusing on football. Maybe that's focusing on him being more independent, since he was able to go out to this little town after school sometimes with a friend while they waited for football practice to roll around. So maybe it's focusing on his character this year, not like school. So I'd like to celebrate who he's becoming, not the fact that he got a good grade. So I'm like answering my question as I'm talking. So
Yeah,
maybe that's how we should celebrate people, to celebrate their character.
And I will go similar to that, to an answer that I had earlier on this episode, where I would expect my kids to be able to say a few sentences to their teachers and people that have helped them along the way. I think that's really powerful from parents too. A card or something that is a 1 in a million, not 1 in a million, is a million out of a million. It's just a pile of things that they would expect. But sitting down and seriously saying, wow, I'm really proud of you for making it through. I know you had these struggles, but you powered through. Great job. I think is more impactful than a couple of congratulations balloons.
Yes. And again, we talked earlier, we don't want to make it, it's like not all about him. Like it's congratulations to you for who you're becoming, but also like, why are you there? Like who was along with you on that path? Maybe we can sit down and he can write an email to the entire group of teachers that supported him this year. And even if they don't reply, it's a matter of you need to take action on showing others gratitude for why you are where you are right now.
All right, question 6. After that serious one, here's one from Minnesota, from St. Cloud. It says, why are they always brats?
Always? I think that's a little unfair. I hope that's not true.
That's the question that was submitted.
Okay.
That's all I can do, Mel. But I will say this, instinctively probably because the parents reinforce that. But in a more actual development way, kids grow up and are... It's the right stage of development to be self-centered while they're trying to figure out the world and learn everything around them and take care of their human needs to a point. And then at a point, you need to help them progress out of that stage to the next stage of life and start seeing a bigger picture. So it is developmentally appropriate to be self-centered at the beginning.
I have another example now from last night.
Oh, I should say also, it's developmentally appropriate to not consider cognitively the outcomes of their actions until they are, I think, like teenagers. If you look at the development charts, they're going to do things and not even think about what's going to happen until they are like high teenagers nowadays.
No, it's like in your 20s.
Yes.
It's like the development of your prefrontal lobe or something. That's where your decision-making skills are.
So that's the real reason why they're probably brats, but the sub-reason is probably because of your role modeling too. All right, go ahead with your point.
Okay, so again, this goes along with exactly what you're saying. There's this rub between where they are at developmentally and where you want them to be and how you want to show them to get there. So last night there was this, or the other day there was like a fun run at the elementary school. And it was explained to me yesterday by my 6th grader that some kids got slighted. They put these rubber bands on their wrist. Every loop that they make, they get a rubber band. So at the end, they count how many rubber bands they have, and that's how many laps that they did. And I guess one kid's rubber band broke, so another kid gave him one, and then it became this whole thing where those kids got disqualified, and it felt unfair. And I said to my kid, I said, will this matter 20 years from now? Who cares? So what? It's just like a silly fun run that doesn't matter. And so that's me trying to show him, like, this kind of stuff doesn't matter. Just shake it off and move on. But he said, I hate when people say that because this does matter right now. And again, that reminded me that kids are very in the moment. Like what's happening in their lives at this particular moment is so big because they don't have that future thinking. They think that if I say to them, just let it go, just think about 20 years from now, it almost devalues their current experience of life. So that's that rub of, okay, I want to show you that this doesn't matter. Who cares if you got a bad grade on this one test? Like years from now, it does not going to matter. But in the moment with kids, it's so powerful. So again, I just said, I'm not going to force the issue. I just said, hey, this is the idea I want you to work on thinking about. But you have control to reject it. Like you don't have to like what I'm saying. So I'm not going to get mad at him, but I'm still going to teach him those lessons because I think it will be valuable. But in that particular moment, he like reminded me, listen, you're an adult, I'm a kid. It's different for us. Our experience is different.
Question 7. This is going to be a compilation of a lot of questions we received. I'll just choose this one that was asked specifically from Lisa, but it says, always looking for tips on how to boost their confidence. My child struggles. There's another one. My child struggles with self-confidence. How do I encourage a child with low self-confidence is another question. We have a lot of these confidence-based questions, and so I'm going to jump into this. This is an important topic. The basic premise is let them own what they can own in their lives. And so help them build confidence in small things, and it'll start carrying over to big things. Friend Vince would say, don't do for a child what that child can do for him or herself. And that includes putting their food in their lunch bag. Maybe at the beginning, they're young, you make the food, they organize it in a way in their lunch that they like, and they take that off, and they pack their bag, and they carry their bag up to the car, they carry their bag into the school. They start doing these things that gives them an increased self-worth because they're doing valuable things to their life. Like we talked about in the last question, at the beginning, it's going to be about them. They're thinking about their life. They're living in the moment. There are plenty of opportunities in there to help them build their self-confidence, and it's usually by increasing their skills, starting with small things, and slowly leveling up to bigger things. Of course, we want the magic wand solution where you take a shy child and then presto, all hunky-dory, as Mel would say.
That's right.
I don't think it is. Presto, now they are super outgoing, and perhaps there are just some introverted tendencies, or the child's just different in some ways. That, in the big picture, will all play out how it plays out, but you can still build their self-confidence by letting them do certain things and elevating them up. And at a young age, I'd recommend getting them into being able to do a little bit of speaking in front of a group so that they're not wrestling with that when they're a teenager. Like some of these things you can get ahead of earlier in life and just start building their confidence in small ways. Speaking in front of the dinner table is a lot easier than speaking in front of 100 people. If the first public speaking thing they have down the road, I'm just picking that because that's where a ton of people, even adults, struggle with self-confidence. That's just too big to start. Start speaking to one person, 2 people, 3 people, a small group at a table setting, a small group where you're standing in front of them setting. There's steps to the game. And so if you're able to lay these steps out, then you're going to have a more confident child.
What we talk about during family meetings and during family dinners is great opportunities to teach communication skills and up that confidence. I wanted to just tweak what you said a little bit, because being shy doesn't necessarily mean you lack confidence. You can have a kid who's introverted and shy and is very confident in who they are. But I think starting young is obviously easier. We had the example in a previous episode of Everett wants his water bottle refilled, and it's just quicker if I do it. But instead, we always ask the question of, what can you do? I can't open it, I'm not strong enough. What can you do? Oh, I can ask somebody. So he's got a problem solve, and now we don't even, after a couple weeks of that, he just comes to someone and says, can you open this, please? And then he goes and refills it. So he already learned the system, and he gained confidence, and it almost seems silly, like it's just a water bottle, but those are those little mini skills that build up to confidence. So let's say you have a kid who's already a little older and is struggling with confidence. I think getting them involved in some kind of a project from start to finish that they have control over. Maybe they want to build something. Maybe they want to, volunteer in some community way. But find something for them to go from start to finish, and that they can actually see that they progress and they did it on their own. But I think what I said before that applies to everything. Ask your kid, what can you do? What's within your control? What's the next step? Even though we might have the answer, I have to stop myself from just solving it for them. Guide them to solve it. And if they can solve it and it goes well, that's where they gain the confidence. And if it doesn't go well, you talk about, what could we have done differently?
I'll give you a real tactical thing to do off Mel's example is go to your local Home Depot. They have weekend kid activities where they take the scrap wood and they'll build birdhouses and stuff. I believe it's free, right, Mel?
I think so.
And they just guide you start to finish. And it's just a project that they can do something, and they have it done by the end of the day, a step-by-step procedure, and you just go and assist. You can find it, our local library is great with it, not great in every area, but maybe it's at the local library they have some projects. So search around your neighborhood, find something that they are interested in, and have them see it through from beginning to end to help build their confidence. 3, and I'm not saying question 3 intentionally, because this one's a statement with an exclamation point at the end that I semi-agree with and strongly disagree with. At the same time, This one's from Kim. It says, all children should be listened to, exclamation point. So, Kim, yes and no. So yes, it is great to let children finish their thoughts and sentences, even to the point of the last question. To help them build confidence, don't cut them off, even if they're saying something that takes forever for them to get out. Let them speak it through, and so they're not rushing their ideas and thoughts. Should all children be agreed with? No. There are some things they say that are outrageous. That is a crazy thing that we're not going to do. Yes, I'm going to listen to you about how we're going to cut down all the trees on our property and make a huge fire. But we're not going to do it because of, and then we can have a discussion on it. That's cool, creative, and imaginative behavior for a younger child. And let them think outside the box. Let them think about a ton of stuff. Let them think and talk about dragons and everything else. And you don't have to always correct them at the end. But at some point, they'll say something, and it's going to become detrimental for them to continue believing down that path, and it needs a little bit of nudging. So yes and no. What do you think about that statement, Mel?
My first thought is I want context.
Well, that's all you get.
I know it's
that's
all
why
that I
I
get.
tried to add my own context. With someone who says that in exclamation point, they seem like, honestly, pushover. Like, we're going to let this child think and believe whatever they want because they're a free spirit. And maybe that's the context that I'm reading into it. But to have that as the question you submit on a website as like your defining belief, probably over the top. That's why I wanted to address it.
And I like bringing it back to the strong family path. So in the evening debrief, that really is my time to listen to my kids and what they've got going on, because a lot of times that's when things come up. I mentioned earlier the whole fun run drama thing that came up at the evening debrief. So that is, if what will help this comment is if you create a time of day where the kids know that they can be listened to and will be listened to, that is a really good a really good tactic to carve that out in your day. And the evening just happens to work best for us, and I think that's when kids are more relaxed and bring things up. But you have to also be willing to call them on garbage talk. Even though my kid didn't like my response to what he said about what is this matter 20 years from now, he was heard, and I was able to say what I thought, but I wasn't overbearing about it. That's my reply, is have time where kids have a time set up during the day where the kid can come to you and be listened to, but be willing to still push back if necessary.
I agree. All right, I've totally lost track. We're going to call this question 8 and hope I'm right with it. Let's see what we have. This one we have a whole episode on, but we'll cover the main things before we hit the summer. This is good to refresh. Question from Doug asks, staying healthy suggestions.
Oh, okay.
So number 1, I believe every child should have some morning exercise program. I'm not talking about for the purpose of getting them super strong or fit. It should be about 5 minutes to teach them the habit of exercising in the morning. We've had that for years. Our kids are pretty habitual about it. Even our younger one gets involved in it, which we'll work on a little bit more over the summer. But it's about 5 minutes of activities, just some basic couple push-ups, couple squats, couple pull-ups for one, just hang from the bar for 30 seconds for the other, and then they come upstairs. It might not even be 5 minutes. I'd be surprised if it's do a plank. It's just some very basic stuff so that they know the importance of exercise and movement. They do a great job, but it's almost nothing to them now that it's just a couple minutes and it's part of the routine.
Yeah, so creating a habit, that's really what we're trying to do. And I'm going to go from the nutritional perspective. Have your kids involved in the cooking. Cook at home. Have them involved in it. The other day we had dinner, and then my youngest just wasn't feeling great, but then he got hungry later, so then my older one helped him make scrambled eggs. So they already have some skills of cooking, but I think involving them in it, having them find recipes they want to try, I think is really fun. So, and then giving them, this is my own personal thing, giving them the space to experiment and do the cooking without being overbearing about cleanliness. Because I always get, if there's flour all over, it drives me crazy. But like giving them the ability to practice and make healthy meals on their own is a huge confidence builder too, for that previous point. So getting them involved in the kitchen and in cooking.
So there's 2 simpler tasks. Here is the tougher one. Gotta stay healthy yourself. Gotta role model it. It is a challenge, of course. The quantity of food available to us and the quantity of comfort at home is tough to leave to go out for a walk, things like that. You should do your family walks. If it is truly important, you have to live it. And there's a huge fine line here, because I've been seeing this trend where like super fit guys try to shame other guys. Oh, you're fat, like you got a gut, like all this stuff. I saw a disgusting video of an influencer online this past week where they were like a panel at a conference, and this one guy's super fit, and he starts telling this other guy that like his opinion doesn't matter because he's got a gut, he's got, look at you, got string arms. Like, it was really weird behavior, because that kind of role modeling is super negative, and that shouldn't be it too. It's like, oh, I'm an alpha male. Like, obviously not. If you can't form coherent sentences, stay in a seat instead of trying to hover over this other guy. Like, that's not role modeling for your family and for your life. What is role modeling is you guys go out for a stroll together. Every day after dinner, go for a 10-minute walk. You have the time. Everyone's got the time for that. You do a little bit of exercise. If you're out of shape, you admit it and say, hey, like, I want to do better in my life too. I want you to grow up to be a healthy adult, and I have failed in this area, so we're going to do it together. Would you help me go for a 10-minute walk every day after dinner? Would you help me do a little bit of morning exercise? I'll do it with you. It's only 5 minutes. And you start doing things together, and you start to eliminate the crap food that Mel mentioned. You stop celebrating with all junk food and that sort of things. You stop celebrating being lazy. You stop celebrating sitting around all the time and all these other things. You don't have to have popcorn at movie night. You don't have to go get candy at movie night and have it all for your family. These things make a tremendous impact on their lives, but so much on yours. No one cares about the popcorn and the candy and the crap at the end of life. They care if you're around for an extra 5 years. So while I take it seriously, and there's no shame in the game if you're out of shape, it's only if you're unwilling to do anything about it is where you need to start making some actions.
And I would suggest I have a family meeting, and one of the discussion topics can be, what can we do together as a family to be healthier? Because kids come up with great ideas. Geez, Everett, the youngest, this morning when I asked that question about how can we celebrate our oldest, he said, let's go on a walk together after dinner. And that's not something that we do consistently. And the fact that he decided that was a good way to celebrate, we should really honor what he said and do that tonight. And it always ends up being more fun than you think. Kids always make it more interesting. They'll find a stick. They'll start, well, let's aim for that tree and throw a rock, see who can hit the tree. It always gets more interesting, and it reinforces doing it again.
Absolutely. And the last part of it is you have to be willing to go alone at the beginning. Not everyone's going to jump on the bandwagon. It's not going to be all hunky-dory, allegedly. At the beginning, you're like, all right, we're going to go for a walk. Everyone will go for a walk. Like sometimes you go for the walk and they're like, no, I don't want to go. Say, okay, I'm still going because this is important to me. And they need to see you not give in on this stuff. This past week and did a 55-mile race, and I don't expect my kids to go out there and do it. I want someday to be able to do a 100-mile race with each one of my kids. That's one of my goals, to stay healthy long enough and to have them healthy long enough that we can do that adventure together. It's not to go out and win this thing, but let's go on this mountain race and survive it together. And they were there at the aid station. Some of them were very supportive. One of them was making it about himself and some things he had going on, and that's fine too. That's just where they're at. They don't always give you the reaction you want. You still need to stick to the behaviors that you want to role model and are important to you.
2 more?
Let's call it 2
more. You claim that was 8, so
yeah,
it's 9.
I'll claim all kinds of things. You claim it's hunky-dory too. I think humpy-dory doesn't sound right.
That's definitely not right. It's a hunky-dory.
Question 9. Oh, let me keep scrolling. We got so many good questions. Let's go with this. Mel, how to deal with the internet without totally controlling what they see?
We can give you our tactic, and we have set up, they each get 3 15-minute segments a day that they have to mark down and use timers for. And we discussed with them before we all started this that at any time we can look at their tablet, so they're aware of that. And at any time when we walk in and we ask what they're looking at, they have to show us. And obviously there's like parental controls and stuff, but that is very tricky because like we started out by doing like YouTube Kids, but then the older ones can't access like the interesting things they want to look at that are fully appropriate. So I really think it's just open communication. Not having computers and phones in rooms, in bedrooms, I think is really important as well. It has to be out in the open. And there has to be an understanding. The best option is to have that understanding happen before they start. So again, this is, and I think it's not a wonderful answer because there's not a perfect answer. I would love to just not have it, but then I see how much value it has brought to our kids in other ways. So I think it's important to have open communication, have ground rules, specific ground rules set beforehand that everybody understands. And I think you have to periodically come back and review those rules because things will always slip. We're always going around and asking our kids, is your timer on? And we started a new rule. If they don't have a timer on, they lose their tablet for 24 hours. We just started that a couple months ago. So you have to always keep tabs and have clear communication. I would have a contract like written out and have everybody sign it, and don't just walk away from it assuming everything's fine. You have to check in.
Very good. And I'll add just one other thing. You can also teach them how to use it for a positive way. Our son Henry just had his 3rd soccer season They finished an undefeated season, and they barely won a game in season 1. They won some games in season 2, went undefeated in season 3. I have no idea how to play soccer. I'll go out there and be a goalie for him. But he learned a lot of that from watching videos. And so when they say, hey, I want to learn the skill, sometimes it's good for you to be humble and admit, I'm not sure how to do this. Let's look this up together. And then you model how to do it, learn the skill, then practice it in the real world to get off of line. And so he learned how to do like rainbow kicks and this different toe passing, like stuff I don't even know the words to explain what he's able to do now. And he was able to use it in a positive way. So setting up more situations like that versus like, all right, here's this tablet, just do whatever you want. Let's just consume YouTube shorts like they're candy all day. Like giving them some parameters and showing them how it will benefit their life is also powerful.
Yeah, well, our 8th grader got the opportunity to present about 3D print design technology to a 7th grade class a couple weeks ago, and he was practicing his presentation on me, and I asked him, like, how do you know all this, because this is not stuff taught in school necessarily. And he's, YouTube, just whenever I wanted to learn this, I just looked it up. So there is value, and that's important to reinforce, like you said.
I've got a good buddy, Rudolph, calls it YouTube University. He's built pizza ovens and sheds, and I don't know what he's done. He's learned so much from YouTube, but uses it as a tool. And it's always good to reinforce that, and the kids know him and see what he's able to create from, like building a house off of learning from YouTube.
But I want to just add, though, I think the struggle becomes more when it's social media. So like using YouTube for learning, I don't know how much learning goes on in social media. That's when like the lack of confidence starts and the comparison to other kids and all of that. So I think avoiding social media is also another tactic.
And that was a previous question. I'm not going to count this as question 10, but they do ask specifically about social media. There's a lot of questions on it. And like, how do I build my child's confidence in the age of social media? Let them be confident and different by being the one who's not really on it. Be the interesting one. People are like, wow, you're not posting pictures of all your food and like your daily activity and like caring what everyone else sees. That's an opportunity to be unique. Like the rebels back in the day were like the James Dean motorcycle riding, pack of cigarettes in the pocket, leather jacket kids on the outskirts, the book The Outsiders. But now it's like the kids who just are normal and don't live on social media. So it's not hard to stand out in a world of social media because everyone just blends into this lukewarm middle of caring what everyone else thinks. And if they're strong and confident enough to not, it can really impact and help others.
We want them to live in the moment too, but we want them to live in the moment in reality. Like I want my kid to go to school and communicate with people in person. And like our kids do have an app on their tablets that allows them to text with friends, and we have very strict guidelines about how they can't have notifications on between their 15 minutes because we don't want them hearing the notifications. And that allows them to communicate with their friends, but it's not social media. It's not pictures. It's not likes. They're still having to live in the moment in person. I think that's the struggle is kids start to have this other like double life as like an internet person. And I think that just messes up their psyche.
Question 10. Question 10.
So.
Let's say it with confidence. Hopefully everyone believes me that I counted those right. This is a good one from Tyrone. It says, how do I create a culture of learning and teaching? So let me give a couple tactics right off the bat. First, get a bookshelf. We have a bookshelf right off camera. For those watching on YouTube, we built it intentionally in the living room. It's one of the things they see in. There's no TV in this main room, this living room. There's a bookshelf instead. I like my buddy Vince's house to go out for morning runs or walks. You come in, like they have a big front window, and through that front window you see the bookshelf. That is a critical thing for them to appreciate. Now, we talked about online learning as well, so it doesn't all have to be physical books. There's an episode in season 1 about how to set up your house to have the values instilled that you want. That would be a good episode to listen to, because setting up your environment for success, just like if you want a culture of healthy lifestyles, don't have crap laying around the house. Don't have candy bowls. Don't have hard candy dishes. Don't have the snack bars be the first thing they see when they get up. Don't always have food out. Don't have cookies on the counter. If you want a culture of learning, have books out. Have places to sit and read that are comfortable to gather. Have discussions at the dinner table about, oh, what'd you learn today? And then you get taught what they learn, and you role model what it's like to learn from them. So now they are teaching to the second part of your question. And you listen to them, what'd you learn today in school? Kids don't love that question, so I'll ask them specifically, what's 2 things you learned today in school? So they have to think of a couple things, and I'll choose one and say, oh, can you teach me a little bit more about that? The culture is a great word, Tyrone. I love that word. It is a culture thing. It's not a tactic thing. It's a holistic approach to being a learner and a teacher, and making it seem like that's the cool thing to do.
And my tactic is to seize opportunities that come up and buy a microscope.
The kids love microscope. You love a microscope too.
Do. So the other day, this is the example that came up, and I think it'd be great for all families. So I was outside weeding, and it was just Everett with us. So the other two were at friends' houses or something. And I was weeding outside, and we pulled out this huge root. Like the root of the clover plant was like way bigger than expected. Mm-hmm. And Everett's, can we eat that? And I'm like, I'm not sure. We can look that up. And then, can I cut it up and look at it? Yeah. So we spent the next 2 hours like cutting up the plant. I got out the microscope that we got like years ago and looking at it. And then he ended up going outside, and I'm like, Ev, go get another plant. So he got bark and he got all this cool stuff. He ended up like hammering rocks apart just to make the pieces small enough to be able to look at them under the microscope. And that's really, I think, what Tyrone is talking about. We want a thirst and an excitement for learning, but I could have just said, we'll just wait because I have to finish this weeding, or let's do that another day. And then all of a sudden that opportunity just fizzes out. So seize the opportunity when it comes. And then it's almost once he got excited, I got more excited. We talked about how I went to that hummingbird thing a couple weeks ago, and I was so excited about learning about it. So it's that kind of excitement that we want to foster. So don't let opportunities slip away.
Great, and I appreciate all the listeners coming with us on season 2 here. Let me explain what's going on now. We're going to take about a 10-12 week break during the summer, because the same things that we're talking about with you, we need time and space to work on ourselves. Our kids are young. We only get so many summers. We're going to make the most of it. Never once am I going to say, hey, I can't do that because I've got to edit the podcast or think of ideas for it. Well, I love doing it. It'll return as soon as school returns. Here's what to do in the meantime. Number 1, if you find any episodes helpful, you do need to share them. We want to see a certain amount of listens on every episode that quantify as success to us. It's not a dollar value thing. It's not a sponsorship thing. It's that people are listening and we're able to impact their lives. The only way to get more people to listen for us will be you sharing the helpful episodes with 1 or 2 people. I would recommend getting the Strong Family Guidebook. We made it so affordable. Like I said, it's around $10 or less, I believe, right now on Amazon, because it outlines everything. If you want to model teaching and learning, pick up a system and start installing it in your family. There it is. It is all for you. You now have time and space, because we're not going to throw new things at you every single week, because we're taking a little bit of a summer break. Mel, last words to the listeners.
I can't wait to see what we're going to talk about in the fall with all of our summer experiences.
Have a great summer, everyone. Talk to you.